Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of Airing It Out, Files from Leahy's broadcast booth. I'm your host, John Leahy. Great to have you with us on the podcast here tonight as we celebrate another week here. And I want to thank my good friend Andy Connolly, musician who was with us last week. We reviewed Andy's upcoming album. And if you'd like to check that out, check us over at LeahyStorytelling.com. All the episodes we've ever done are there. You can also check us out. We have a blog there. We have a video area. We have an area where you can leave your comments and ratings. And you can also leave a voice message for me. There's a purple microphone at the lower right-hand corner of each page. And I look forward to hearing from you. We publish every Wednesday. And check out my website at johnrleahy.com. That's where everything kind of gets pulled together. The podcast also links to the website, and it's nice and tidy. So we're going to move back into sports this week and sports broadcasting. Boy, it's a big thrill this week to welcome in Pete Sheppard. Now, anybody who has been listening to sports radio up here in New England knows who this man is. He's had a great, long history in sports radio, and I've been on his show a couple of times. I'm tickled pink to have him. Pete Sheppard, thanks so much for being with us. It is so great having you here, my friend.
Well, in the words of Robert De Niro from Meet the Parents, I must apologize for the decorative artifacts that are behind me. Um, I'm in the office, and usually when I do my show on the Coastal Sports Network, I usually have, which people think it's real, and I'm close to the Fort Myers Beach, but it's a. You've seen the background I have with the palm trees and the.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I can't do that on Zoom. I can only do it on my thing. But you, my friend, look like you are in a room modeled after One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with that white padded wall. What is going on with that? Are
You
you
know,
okay?
yeah, no. This is my broadcast studio that I built specifically for doing audiobooks, but anytime I have to record something, I come in here and it's soundproof, Pete.
Stop. That's it. Soundproof. This is not. So I can promise you, this probably isn't freaking soundproof. Is I'm in basically the third bedroom, which I redecorated into my office, and it looks much better on my show. But I do apologize. But if you like the decorative artifacts,
Oh yeah, it's
blame my wife Elaine. She's the hello Elaine. So many Seinfeld jokes, so little time. But yeah, all the time.
well, it's the audio is the most important thing, Pete. So,
Yes.
but you look great, and your environment looks great, and so we've talked, several times, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit, and I know that this industry has always been special to you, Pete. I know you've had a lot of interest in it for a long time.
Mhm.
You went to high school in Rhode Island, and you went to Connecticut School of Broadcasting in '87. That's something we have in common. We both went to that campus, and we're both on the Wall of Fame there. But I want to talk to
Yeah.
you about how it all got started for you and how important CSB was in your career.
Well, was Bud Stone there when you were there?
No, that was before my time.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'll get to them in a second. No, so it was, and I was a kid growing up, and I just wanted to. I always knew I wanted to be in sports broadcasting, particularly play by play. And I've said this story many times, but for your audience, I used to turn my upstairs uh, third floor room in townhouse in Narragansett, Rhode Island, into a studio. Turn the desk around when I could, and do play by play for the Bruins or whatever I could do, particularly the Bruins. I used to have two tape recorders. When I do play by play, and I'd listen to Bob Wilson in the headset from WPLM back in the day,
Oh yeah.
which was
Right.
the flagship, and I had another tape recorder next to me, which was just a continuous loop of fans that I had did from the NC State Houston game, Lorenzo Charles dunk, and I just looped the fans. And so if the Bruins were, it'd be like Ray Bork coming up the ice, and I'd be watching. I only be listening to Bob because just in case, because you can't see everything on TV. But I knew the players and I knew the lineups basically because I was a wacko back then even, and I would raise the volume up on one tape recorder as they were coming up ice to make it sound like it was actually there.
Nice.
So that's the kind of nut I was. And then I graduated Bishop Hendricken, which is as good as any four-year college, let me tell you. And by the way, congratulations to Xavier Truss, who just got signed by the Denver Broncos. Was another pick out of Hendricken. Quiddy Pay, we all know him. First rounder went to Indianapolis, and Don Blackman earlier a few years ago, who's now on NFL Network, went to Green Bay. So, I mean, I went to a high school that had pros in every single sport. It was very competitive, not just sports wise, but academically. And my wonderful C plus average was phenomenal. And my wonderful JV, junior varsity athletic ability was absolutely second to none. But I never came out of the school any day without laughing my head off about something that somebody said or the teachers and everything else. And it really had a profound influence on my life. I say it all the time to everybody. I wasn't the best athlete. I sure as hell wasn't the best student, but it really shaped who I am because the one thing that I learned was discipline and respect, and that's what I've always tried, for the most part. For the most part, try to live my life that way. Sometimes on the radio, when you yabber and jibber jabbering back and forth, it's a little different. But the I was about to go. I applied to several colleges. I got into some, not others.
Mhm.
And I was just my dad and I were watching TV one day, a Bruins game actually, and the Connecticut School of Broadcasting thing came on with Dick Robinson. I go, that's what I want to do. I didn't want to go to a 4-year school. I went to a half a semester at junior college because I didn't know where I wanted to transfer, and all I did was go and play golf. I hardly ever went to class, and
Yeah.
because the stuff that they were teaching me, I already had in my high school, and I was like, I was really pissed because I was like, this is the philosophy class I had all through Hendricken. There were history and some other classes. I'm like, I've been there, done that. I don't. It's not my thing. I want to get into sports broadcasting. So we saw the commercial. My dad checked it out with the Better Business Bureau, and we had an audition back then.
Yep.
And I got in. I was one of the few lucky ones, and I do to get in, and I just took really advantage of it and did really well, and I loved it. I got my first apartment in Waltham, Mass, right across on Route 20 from Pat's Ticket Agency and across from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
My parents came up to visit the first time I moved in. My mother cried because she couldn't she couldn't believe I was living in that way in this little studio apartment. But I mean, I was on my own and I loved it. And I used to go do extra work at night. I would drive from where I was in Waltham down to Wellesley, where the campus was at the time. It's moved since, and I would just I would do my thing. I would practice. I practiced everything from sports to DJing to
Yep.
news to everything because the one thing they said, learn as much as you can. And this was before digital. We had none of that stuff. I didn't know what digital was. It was all basic terrestrial radio stuff. And just learn as much as you can. Do as much as you can. Never say no to anybody,
Yep.
and don't expect a whole lot of money to start, which I didn't. And my first job was uh, about 2 weeks after I got out of school was at WKFD in Wickford, Rhode Island. I
All
made
right.
$3.75 an hour, which was
Yeah.
about minimum wage. And the owners of the station at the time were Patrice Wood of Channel 10,
Okay.
real name Holly, by the way. That's a
All
true
right.
story.
All right.
And her husband, great Paul Pabus, and he was an engineer. He might still be at WBZ in Boston. But wonderful owners, and showed me the ropes a little bit and some different things. But I had to cover. I mean, I remember I had to cover like incinerator meetings going on in North Kingstown, Rhode Island.
Yep.
And you had to be willing to do a whole lot of stuff, working a whole lot more than 40 hours. But I didn't care,
Yep.
because I also got to do play-by-play for the local high school teams at the time and everything else. And then I really just worked my way up from there to WKRI, which at the time was the flagship station for the Pawtucket Red Sox. And my real mentor there, John Parenti, who I'm telling you, I would not be the broadcaster I am today. I've said this to him to his face all the time. He's probably crying right now. But I mean, because of him, he really, really showed me the ropes. And then just worked my way up from there to several other media market stations, moved to Massachusetts, and then one day I just got in my car in 1995 and I just had my resume and tape with me. And I was working at this station in northern Worcester County where we had just given away manure on the air as a prize.
Wow.
And people called in for it. People called in for it. I was doing news and sports. I wasn't, and I was like, F this. I had my resume in the car. I'm like, I'm just going to go. And it happened to be the same day that EEI was expanding huge. I had no idea what they were doing. It's right after they moved out of the Schrafft's building. They were going to move to Huntington Ave. and it was a huge thing. And I was going to do the sports flashes out of the Prudential building for them at the time
Yeah.
for a company called Metro Networks. And uh, I got there and they hired me, and like 4 minutes after I got there, they heard my tape and hired me. And I started my first shift a couple of days later. And
Nice.
the rest is it from 95. Then I started working 7 days a week. I was doing flashes on Eddie and Dale's show for 5 days. And John Wallach and I got a show together on weekends. So I was working 7 days a week. 5 days a week as a flash guy, and 2 days a week a uh, as a sports talk show host, which was great with John on weekends. A lot of times we had the 1 to 6 shift. Many times we were doing 5 hours on
Yep.
Saturday and Sunday. And then Sean Grandy left to do the play-by-play job. He left the big show to do the play-by-play job for the Minneapolis Timberwolves, Minnesota Timberwolves. And Glenn and Jason Wolf, the program director at the time, called me and said, "You're going to be our guy. We love what you're doing. Don't worry about what's in the background. Don't worry about noise. You're gonna be in here." So it was great. And the other great part of this, I'll never forget, when I hired my agent from Kim Zayati, and I remember walking into her office at the time before she was at her current place of employment, which is Blue Sky Sports, and she represents a lot of media and everything else. But the first time I walked into the office in Boston, is Bob Wolf was still alive. It was his. She was working for Bob, who was one of the great agents, God rest his soul, of all time. First person to come out, Bobby Orr.
Oh, wow.
And he was
Wow.
just doing something there, and he came out, and I had met him once when I was a little kid, and we talked for like 10 minutes, and I was like, I was just overwhelmed,
Flowing. Yeah.
overwhelmed, and he was just the nicest, and still is the nicest person on the face of the earth. So I hired Kim. She got my contract going and everything else, and I the rest is history. Did the best I can. Had some ups and downs at EI, mostly ups, and in fact, Glenn's going to be on my show on Thursday again.
Nice. I'm glad you're able to keep in touch with him too. That's great.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean he's another one of my besides John Parenti in Rhode Island. I mean Glenn, obviously, I learned so much from him, and how he handled the big show and everything else. And of course, I got to fill in many times when he wasn't there, and no two talk show hosts are ever the same. But I wanted to get the best. He got the best out of the co-hosts, and that's what I always tried. I always tried to do.
Well, Pete, I remember you fondly at WWEI. I listened to it all the time. And I got to tell you, there were so many great personalities on that station. But the one thing I will always remember was the Weiner line. That was
Yeah.
the greatest thing ever. That was so much fun. How much fun
They
did you
wanted to
have?
cancel it. Management didn't want it at first.
Really? Really?
Management didn't want it at first,
Wow.
and we're like, "Are you crazy?" And it's just it. We went from the Whiny Awards at
Right, right.
Davio's for 250, or yeah, it was at Davio's, our first one with like 200 people. By
Mhm.
the way, Steve DiFilippo, my good friend, he's having a huge 40-year celebration coming up in May.
Nice.
I just got a text and message from him, and but it went from 200 people to us 4 or 5 years later going to the Garden where there's like 8,000 people. That's how big it got. We went from Davio's to a couple of other places, including Patriot Place there, and then the Garden might have been the Fleet Center at the time, whatever it was called. But to have 8,000 people show up for all these very talented misfits, and I mean that in a very
Oh,
humbling,
yeah.
commendatory way. It was freaking amazing. Like no one had ever done that, and there were so many people out there in the media. And Bob Ryan, to his credit, admits he was wrong. I mean, he was like one of the I Winerline. I hate it. We used to have the Winerline opens of people hating on the show. That was the best part. We didn't give a crap. You
Yeah.
know, the more
I
you hated us, the more popular it was. As far as that goes. I mean, and there were some really talented people that would call in with different voices and very creative. So I mean, they were absolutely amazing, and some of them. Like a guy like Greg Murphy, who comes on my show occasionally as well. He started off, he's the one that did Terry Francona and
yeah,
Jonathan I think
yeah.
he did Mary Carrillo. I could be wrong. But those people made huge names for themselves. They went on to bigger careers in the comedy business. Amazing.
Yeah. My personal favorite was the Marlboro Man. I thought he was unbelievable. His voice alone made it so much fun.
Yeah.
But
There were a lot. Harry Carey was good. Actually, we had a Harry Carey guy down here in Southwest Florida. That's really good too. My man Andrew, who's a good guy, really good. But I remember the Harry Carey guy in New England he was a high school principal in New Hampshire,
oh, okay,
and
did not know
very
that.
smart. I mean, these people that would call in were first of all, unbelievable fans and listeners, but incredibly talented
Sure,
with the
sure.
voices that they project. It was something. But our show was like we used to say it. Glenn and I and others would say it was like a Seinfeld episode. You just did not want to miss what was happening the next week. And of course, our great producers, for the most part, Andy and Brett,
Mhm.
were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. You can't have great shows like we have without great producers. You just can't.
Without a doubt, without a doubt, and that was a big part of my life, listening to you and all the guys over there. So I'm grateful for all the hard work you put in over the years. And I know you did a lot of work with the Patriots post game shows, Pete. I know
Mhm.
Steve Diossi and Fred Smirlis. You had a
Yep.
chance to work with them. So
Yeah,
that
many
must,
years.
yeah, that must have been a fun experience, was it?
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, you're kidding me. I learned so much from those guys. I mean, they're the best and absolutely phenomenal. We didn't always agree on everything, but I'd say we. I mean, it was just we had a good flow. Did that for I think 10 or 11 years, and I did the pregame show with Jerry Thornton and Christopher Price and everything else for 1 year, which was also phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, I love doing the postgame show with Freddie and Steve. Was really really special to me. It was fantastic, particularly after playoff games.
Yeah.
Except for, I do remember Steve was doing TV after the Pats lost to the Giants in '07, the perfect season and everything else. And I remember us going back to the convention center in Arizona,
Hmm.
and nobody wanted to be on the air. Nobody. And I said, look, let's just get through this. We're gonna have a freaking bunch of drunk, shitty ass callers calling up. It's going to be awful. We have to be here till 2 o'clock in the morning. Let's just do it and be as kind as possible. Be as kind, but it was very difficult. And all I remember Andy came in and you thought I had a temper and everything. Andy came in, he chucked a chair. I thought he hit the telephone. There was nobody in there but us. He was so mad.
Wow.
He threw a chair across the room. I mean, it was no, we were no, and then Freddie comes in with a big smile on his face and with literally two buckets in each hand of chicken wings from Hooters in
Uh-oh.
Arizona.
All right. All right.
I mean, there had to be 200 chicken wings in the bucket. That made the night pass a little more smoothly. But that was probably the most difficult time being on the air that I had is losing that game. Everybody's drunk calling in. Everybody's an a-hole, and everybody's this and that. And they
Yeah.
had so many
Yeah.
chances to close out that game, blah, blah, blah. But, I was like, everybody, look, take the good with the bad. They already had a couple of Super Bowls. We're winning titles, with the Red Sox and everything. I mean, things started to change. But that was a really, really, that was probably one of the worst nights of my life. Not as second worst. 2003 Aaron Boone home run was probably the
Yeah.
worst. And I remember coming into the studio. I remember uh, I remember Glenn calling me and I wouldn't pick up. But I was on the first flight out of LaGuardia back to Boston. I got up. I didn't even sleep. And
Hmm.
I remember coming in and Glenn's like, Pete, we're not going to wait for you. I was like, Glenn, I'm already home.
Hmm.
I'm already home. I said, I didn't want to be in that city any longer than I had to. I couldn't wait to get out. I was disgusted. And the whole building was a morgue. It
Yeah,
was a
I can
morgue.
imagine.
That
Yeah.
was the hardest day to come on after that loss in 2003. It was really, really good. Not like when Glenn and I did after 9/11, which is an apples and oranges type of thing. But as far from a sports perspective, that's about as hard a day as ever was coming on in the studio doing a full show after they lost to the Yankees in '03 because it was just like, here we go
Yeah.
again.
And didn't you feel bad that it was Tim Wakefield that gave up the game-winning home run?
Absolutely. It wasn't
Yeah.
his fault. It wasn't his fault.
No.
He was amazing. I miss him and his wife so much. I helped them organize a couple of charity poker tournaments back in the day. He asked for my advice and everything else. I loved him, and his wife. They're great, great, great people. And I don't think anybody with a heart, maybe the asshole in Cleveland the other day yelling at Jaron
Oh,
Darren, Jared would say something, but nobody with a heart or a soul would blame Tim Wakefield for what happened in '03. The guy
Yeah.
did everything you could possibly imagine as a pitcher. It just, he took one for the team.
Yeah,
And
he pitched a
so much.
long
Yep.
relief in that game, several
Yep.
innings. So, yeah, and I agree with you, Pete. I speak very fondly of Tim, and very unfortunate incident in Cleveland last week. And that I have it on good authority. I know someone who was working at that game in Cleveland, and he's told me that fan will never set foot in a Major League Baseball stadium again.
He shouldn't.
Yeah,
It's just so it just makes you lose faith sometimes in humanity. Then I got to stop and think. This is one idiot out of, hopefully like a million people. There's always one in every group. But to say that, especially after what we've seen, the clubhouse and what we saw, and that I think really, really good documentary. I think Sean McAdam and Ian Brown and everybody else that was doing that were absolutely fantastic. You really learned some stuff, I thought. Billy Bean in it as well.
yeah.
But to have that cruel of a mindset, what do you think that guy's life is like when he wakes up in the morning? And I don't know if he has kids or a wife or everything else. What a wonderful freaking effing role model you must be,
Well,
waking up.
yeah.
So,
Well,
you know what?
let's also give props to the Cleveland fans because they wanted him out of there
Yeah,
just as
no,
bad as anybody
absolutely.
else. You know.
And the organization released a nice statement, which I get.
Yeah.
They kind of like PC. They had to do it. They can't look. There's plenty of a-holes in every single stadium, every sport,
Yep.
plenty of them. But crossing the line like that, I mean, to go to come up with that and say that to somebody, I just it made me actually, and I was watching what had happened, and I didn't know exactly what he said until Silent Reporter said it. Who's very good. Why is his name escaping me right now?
Yeah. It's
But
Jemai Webster. Yeah.
Jemai,
Yeah.
he does a great job
Yeah.
until he actually said, because I knew something was wrong, and I had a feeling it was something to do with that. Because I'm like, why is he turning around and going back in the stands? And I'm watching it with my wife, and I'm like, what the? Something had to be nasty. I said, I bet, and I said to myself, I didn't say it out loud. I said, I bet it was some suicide comment or something like that. And
Yeah.
sure as hell it was. But anyway, they got the last laugh. They won the game.
Yep,
Big.
absolutely. Absolutely. Pete,
Yeah.
another thing we have in common before we talk
Yeah.
about some current events here, we both had the chance to work at 1510 a.m. They came down the pike to challenge WEEI. Remember Sean McDonough going over there? Eddie went
Hmm.
over there for a while. And
Yep.
so I did the North Shore Spirit games on that station for a couple of years, but I know you were there as well.
Yeah, I did. Anthony Pepe, who used to be a street teamer at EEI, was the actual general manager there, and yada yada. And I only stayed there for like 4 or 5 months, whatever. Um, but it was just time to move on. But no, it was good. I worked with a few good people, and but it was a way for me to keep my name alive in the Boston market, even though it was 1510 a.m. and EEI had gone FM and all that stuff. I still had great shows. And because we're NBC Sports, so especially during the playoff Stanley Cup playoffs, I had access to everybody
Mhm.
from NBC and the NHL Network and everything else, Catherine Tappan and others, and um, and it was good. We ended up having some really really good shows. Considering that it had a strong signal. 1510 back then had a strong signal. Beautiful studios in Quincy outside. I mean, the bay was right there.
Yeah.
Right outside. But yeah, and then it was just time to move on.
Yep.
It was time to move on.
And when I was there, they moved the studio up to Burlington, so we were up in the Burlington area for a couple of years. So,
Yes,
good.
that was right after me. I wish because I would have been closer to my house at the time, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I was keeping my name out there, and that's all I wanted. I wasn't
absolutely.
interested in ratings or any of that stuff. I knew I was going to put together a good show, which I thought I did for the most part, from what I had and the resources that I had. It was good. I had a good time.
We're talking with Pete Sheppard, longtime sports radio personality here in New England and also now currently down in Florida. We're going to get to Pete's current show in just a little bit. Pete, I thought we'd take a quick look at some current events, get your input here.
Yeah.
I'd like to start off with the NHL playoffs in the East, Pete. You got four teams that are on the verge of moving on: Toronto, Washington, Carolina, and Florida. In the West, it's a lot more tight. Dallas won last night. Everything else is 2-2 in the West.
Well, let's start with the East, and I'm sorry, the Toronto Maple Leafs, as most of sports world knows, they're the equivalent of kind of the Red Sox. And, I picked them to lose in the first round. I'm still not entirely convinced they're going to get out of the first round.
Wow. That's a bold
They're
statement.
down,
Yeah.
but the three
Yeah.
games went to overtime. They should have won three of them.
All right.
They're down three games. They finally did win one. Easily could have won the other two. Easily. They outplayed Toronto in two of the games, not game one, but games 2 and 3. They outplayed them. The Maple Leafs, I think I've said this to you before. It's like in Jurassic Park, with Dr. Ian Malcolm. The Leafs will find a way. They will find a way. There's no way in hell they're getting out of the second round against Florida or Tampa. No way.
All right.
So the Maple Leafs are very talented, but it doesn't matter. I've seen talented Maple Leafs teams before. And if they don't close out this game tonight, because I said to my buddy Mick Colagio, who we talk about the NHL playoffs every week. And I said, just what? I said, I don't. This is before the series started. Mick brings up all these great points about Toronto and everything. I said, yeah, but it's still the Maple Leafs. They will find a way to lose in dramatic fashion. It's inevitable. It happens every single year. The only time they got out of the first round over the last, 8 years is because Tampa Bay was so banged up one year that they actually beat them in the first round, then lost in the second round. So even though they're up 3-1, even though Maple Leafs are up 3-1 tonight and have Ottawa tonight, I'm sorry. I will take the underdog if you're doing shekels, no matter where you're betting, whatever app you're losing in New England or down here in the Hard Rock app in Florida, I don't care. Go against Toronto every single game until they prove me wrong. Now, all streaks can come to an end, like the Red Sox and all that stuff. But the Maple Leafs, they're used to losing in dramatic fashion. We've seen the Bruins lose up 3-0 in 2010 and be up 3-0 on Philadelphia in the third period and lose.
Yeah.
So that happened before they won the Stanley Cup the next year. The Maple Leafs have been, look, it's not going to shock me if Ottawa wins tonight and they go back to Ottawa and that's 3-2.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Now, Carolina's good. I think Carolina's going to close it out tonight. Minnesota's played really well despite being banged up a little bit. And then the Oilers Kings, who the hell knows? Flip a coin. Every game is 6-5. It's been Stanley Cup playoff hockey as usual, especially in the first round, is absolutely awesome. It's unbelievable, as you know. So, and to the NBA's credit, except for Miami getting blown up by 55 last night, and Jay Morant and Memphis getting humiliated. The games have been relatively. I think the Celtics will close out the game tonight. I think they win. I think they cover. I think everybody's playing tonight except for Drew, as far as I know. I just checked the injury report. So,
yeah,
it's been great. Stanley Cup playoffs. So, as a hockey guy like you are, there's nothing better. Nothing better.
I'll tell you, Pete, absolutely. And the series I'm watching is Winnipeg and St. Louis because Connor Hellebuck is a former UMass Lowell goaltender,
yes,
and he's been struggling in the last two games. So that's a brand new series as they head back to Winnipeg.
How puke-inducing, John, is it going to be if it's Jim Montgomery versus Bruce Cassidy in the Western Conference Finals?
It could be that way.
It
could be that way. Yeah, absolutely.
The Blues have done an amazing job coming back in their series, which I kind of knew they would. And Hellebuck, he's been great in the regular season, as we know, and I'm rooting for him. But he's had his ups and downs and disappointments in the playoffs, in the postseason.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, Pete, let's move on to the NBA here. In the East, Cleveland is in the second round, and Indiana, the Knicks, and the Celtics are poised to move on. Pete, we could have a Boston-New York matchup in the second round. How fun would that be?
Not fun for the Knicks because they're going to get swept.
Oh, wow.
All right. They can't beat the Celtics and they can't beat Cleveland. They've lost. They're 0-9 or against the Celtics, the Knicks, and OKC. I think they're 0-10 on the year.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with it. You want to tell me I'll give them a gentleman's sweep? I give the Celtics a gentleman, but I'm not ruling out the Pistons yet either. I think they got screwed the other night on that horrible call where Hart fouled Cade, and it didn't get called. I think they got screwed in that game. The referees admitted it at the end. Now I'm watching Indiana and Milwaukee right now. The Bucks jumped out to a 24-9 lead. They were just up before I came on the show. They were up by 17. Yeah. Now Indiana's ahead 52-51.
Wow. Just goes to
So
show
I
you.
mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna close them out. Indiana's gonna close them out. Doc Rivers is gonna get fired again,
Mm.
and we'll see what happens. And I think the Magic and the Celtics close them out tonight. They everybody but Drew is playing. I think I give Orlando a lot of credit for hanging in there, just winning one game. They got a good defensive team.
Yeah.
They got a couple of good stars, obviously, in Wagner and Bencaro,
Yeah.
but they're a year away from really being seriously competitive. And the Clippers and Nuggets 6-5 and pick them. Who the hell knows? I
Yeah, we
mean,
knew that going in, right? We all
yeah,
thought that would be a 7-game series, but
yeah, that it's tied. It's tied at 2, and who the heck knows what's going to happen in that one?
absolutely. And are you surprised the Lakers are down 3-1 to Minnesota?
I picked Minnesota in 5 before
All
the
right.
series.
So you're not surprised.
And it's not anti-Laker hatred. It's not because the Laker radio and television network on ESPN, which they have their heads so far up the Lakers tookuses over the last month. It's just pathetic. And they do not see the real picture. They just don't see it. They spent 40 minutes the other day, 45 minutes on the morning show in the morning, which I watch a little bit before I do my show from 7 to 10, because I'd sit there and I just yell at the TV or I swear at the TV, to not mention Jason Tatum and his 37 points, and to sit there and just grieve about the Lakers not being able to close out Minnesota.
Mhm.
And just unbelievable stuff. The hatred that goes on in Bristol that is so against the Celtics and New England teams is absolutely unbelievable. Whoever the producers are over there, and I say this all the time, shame on, I'd fire all of them. They don't get it. They think the Lakers sucking as opposed to the Celtics winning moves the needle more for them. And I don't know where they came up with that narrative. It's just not true. You want to mention them, that's fine. To lead with them after what Tatum did the other night in Orlando, and then you lead with the Lakers sucking again down the stretch, LeBron turning the ball over against Minnesota. And Minnesota simply is a better team when healthy. I've told everybody that. They were a little bit banged up down the stretch. This is why they didn't get a higher seed.
Yeah.
They're better than the Lakers. The Lakers are not that good. You got players like Doncic and James combining for 65 points and like 15 rebounds. They're 22 or 25 from the line, John, and they still lost.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
still lose because they don't. I've been saying all year they don't have the depth. They don't have the depth, and their coach sucks. JJ Redick sucks. There's no getting around it. He's going to have a nervous breakdown when it's all said and done. And don't be surprised, the Timberwolves close out that series tomorrow night. The Lakers are just not that good. They're just not that good, and they will continue to get worse.
Interesting. Can anybody stop Oklahoma out west?
Yeah, I mean, they beat the Celtics twice this year in close game, but one was a game where a bunch of people didn't play. No, I don't think out west. I think OKC. They have to get over that hump, though. They have to get over that hump. I think if Golden State advances, Jimmy Butler, look what he's doing. I don't think it's going to be easy for OKC. I don't. I picked them to get to the finals this year, but they have a lot to get overcome. If they ever played the Clippers or Houston, as I said, or Golden State, that is going Minnesota. Minnesota's going to give people fits
Yeah.
because they're going to close out the Lakers. Maybe the Lakers get lucky and win Game 5 at home tomorrow night, but Minnesota's going to win that series. Nobody is going to want to play there. Anthony Edwards is the real deal. That guy's phenomenal. So it's just OKC, besides the Celtics, has the most depth, and they should get to the finals. But if they get upset by Minnesota or the Clippers or Houston, I'm not going to be that surprised. They're still not there yet. They have to prove they can get there.
You heard it first, right here. Pete, I want to talk a little bit about the Patriots and the NFL draft.
Sure.
I know you've had a chance to observe that and take it all in. Are you happy with the Patriots draft? It looks like they got a lot of help in the draft in a lot of places. What are your thoughts on the draft?
Well, obviously, Will Campbell, who I loved, and you can, I watch a ton of college football down here. I'm a huge University of Miami Hurricane fan from back in the 70s, from way back when they almost lost the team. I still root for Boston College, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
But Miami's my team. But I watch a ton of college football and the SEC network, the best conference in the country. And you have Will Campbell playing at LSU. And the only stat I need to see is 890 attempts or pass rushes against him in the last 2 years, gives up 2 sacks.
Yes.
That, I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. And people maybe about Travion Henderson, the running back of Ohio State, tons of speed there. And I think more importantly, tons of football speed, which is a big difference to me. As I say it all the time, it's a big difference between flat out, combine speed at 4.2, 4.3, and then football speed, being able to run routes, something that Polk had a hard time doing last year. But this guy running the ball, and it's not going to shy. I was on with Christopher Price the other day, and we talked about it. I said I would not be surprised if he becomes RB number one when it's all said and done. Kyle Williams at Washington State, I like that pick a lot. Jared Wilson, the center at Georgia, he's going to compete with Garrett Bradbury, the guy they got from Minnesota as a free agent signing, because I think that's a short fix right there. Craig Woodson's the only guy. Last time I saw him, the safety of California, Cam Ward from my Hurricanes, lighting him up, and the whole secondary, like, absolutely bombarded them, particularly in the second half. I mean, but other than that, he is what he is. You never. I mean, this whole thing is a crapshoot. There are absolutely no absolutes. One thing I'm so impressed with. Joshua Farmer, the defensive tackle they got out of Florida State. I think that's a steal. They got that with a trade with Seattle down to pick 137. That kid is a beast. I have seen him play a whole lot. And obviously, I've seen the kicker, Andres Borregales from Miami. He just doesn't miss. John, he just doesn't miss. I've seen him for 4 years. He can kick from 60 plus. I'll be stunned if he doesn't have the starting job. That guy, he was 62 or 62 from extra points last year, and 19 to 20 on field goals, and I think a long of 60 or 62, whatever it was. That is an absolute steal. And then, Mr. Irrelevant, Kobe Minor, the cornerback from Memphis, and the Patriots, he said, were the only ones that had him in he's the only one they visited. Right. I mean, you never know. I mean, we've seen Brock Purdy, we've seen other Mr. Irrelevants Marty Moore was another one. We've seen them do reasonably well. I don't know what he's going to turn out to be. I really don't know. But overall, you got to love what they have done so far. To see, hopefully it translates to the field.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on Mike Vrabel coming back to New England, and he's going to have Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator?
Well, to me, it was a no-brainer. Excuse me, my voice. You can already tell the quote unquote culture, which I think is overused at times, but not so much here. What Mike Vrabel has already done, and the command, the respect and command that he has. And, when Will Campbell talked about, Mike getting in the trenches with him in the workout and, getting knocked on his ass, meaning Vrabel, by Campbell. That kind of stuff is great. He's not afraid to get out there and mix it up with the players, which is, you got to love that. So he can be a player's coach. He's obviously a disciplinarian. I think it's the best thing the Patriots did right from the start. And to get Josh McDaniels back and to get Will Campbell there, I think, and to watch his press conference or to watch his first presser on stage when he was talking about, I'm going to die trying to protect Drake May. I mean, oh my God. I mean, how did you not get goosebumps? Listen to that. He seems like he's been a Patriot for years. So I think he's going to be a great fit.
And Drake May appreciated those comments. You can believe that. Absolutely. Pete, I want to get your thoughts also on the Red Sox. I want to get your thoughts on their start. It seems like it's been kind of a mixed bag. They're up in Toronto to start a series with the Blue Jays. What are your thoughts on the Sox?
Well, I mean, they went through one stretch about 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, where they made 15 errors in 19 games, which was absolutely ridiculous. It looked like the way they were, because it started out great defensively. But they've kind of turned it around, and they lead the league in turning double plays, which is fantastic, which is something that would not have happened a year ago. So there's no question between Trevor Story, Christian Campbell, Bregman has been absolutely the real deal there. So, I mean, they should be competing for not only the playoff, but for the division.
Yeah.
The Yankees lost last night to a horrible Baltimore team. The Red Sox, by the way, were up 3-0 in the first with Crochet on the mound.
Nice.
Right,
it's a good omen. Good omen.
Yeah, it is. And he has an unbelievable record against them anyway. But let me see. Who's hit a home run yet? Just checking real quick. But yeah, no, I really like, and Giolito is going to start tomorrow. First time. Very impressed with Bayo. The only pitcher on the staff that worries me right now is Tanner Houck, who was an all-star last year. He's been shaky. He's been a little bit better lately, but he had a crappy spring training. It carried over into the regular season. It looks like maybe he's sort of straightened himself out, but you got to be happy overall with the Red Sox. They scored 2 in the first and 1 in the second. Duran homered to right center in the first. Bregman homered also, and then Camel. So they had 3 home runs.
Nice.
2 in the first and 1 in the second. So that's why they're up 3-0.
Yeah, I can't underestimate Alex Bregman and what he's brought to this ball club.
Oh, he's like, I mean, you talk about leadership. You talk about a guy who seems like he's been here forever. He's one of them. I mean, they should just sign that guy for 15 years and just let it go.
Absolutely.
Let it go. He was born to be a Red Sox player.
Absolutely. Pete, but before we finish up with your current show, we talked a little bit about it off the air, and maybe you'd care to give an opinion or two on Coach Belichick and the CBS interview and his girlfriend. And it seems like it's kind of an unusual situation, isn't it?
Sweetheart, and I mean that in an affectionate way, you got to settle down, babe. Settle down.
Yeah.
Do not ruin my man's legacy and what he stands for. And there's some other stuff that I found out about today, that off the record stuff that I'm not going to talk about yet. It'll become public. I'm just amazed that he is allowing her. He always talked with Glenn and myself and Steve and Freddie about eliminating distractions. She's a distraction. And from everything I'm hearing, she has been a distraction down there. She's not calling plays or anything like that. She's doing everything else. And I don't get it. It's a little creeping to me. I think it's creeping to everybody. I love Bill Belichick so much and respect him and everything. And I don't know what his kids are thinking about this. All I know is she put an Instagram post out there, which is public, that I read, and she made it sound like Bill wrote it about his new upcoming book. And it's all BS. She wrote it. It's obvious. She's getting slammed for it. And I just can't believe, of all people, that he would put himself in this situation. And I hope, when he was with Linda, she never said boo. She was never in the studio with us, never. I met her several times. Very nice lady. I don't care that he's dating a 24-year-old. It's none of my business. But I become concerned when somebody like that is so engraced and in his life and his professional life, not his personal life, his professional life. She's all over the campus at UNC, everywhere. She claims she's his personal publicist and all that stuff. And I don't know who the hell she thinks she is or where she thinks she's going to inherit that power. But I'm telling you, he better get a grasp of this right away, or he's not going to be there long. He's not going to be there long if he does not get a hold of this situation. I worry about him. I worry about him. There's all those cliches that people use for a guy that's in the 70s. She's 24. And it certainly seems that way. And I never would have thought he would be that way. But he seems to give her carte blanche for a bunch of stuff. And in a million years, I never would have thought that. Never in a million years. But he better get a grasp of the situation real soon, because the bleep is going to hit the fan.
Well, interesting situation there. We wish Coach Belichick well down in North Carolina. And hopefully it'll all work out for everyone. Pete, I wanted to finish up with your show down in Florida. How did that all get started? I know you've had Glenn Ordway on quite a bit. You cover a wide range of topics. So tell us a little bit about the show and where people can find it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can. It's in this day and age, as you know, if you don't have terrestrial radios going down to crapper, as we all know, all these companies are going out of business. So if you don't have a digital platform, even if you still have a terrestrial radio station and you're not on digital, you're in big trouble. We're on, you can follow me on the show on the Coastal Sports Network. My executive producer, Angel Martinez, who sort of really kind of put this thing together, and with the SR 1029 The Game sports app. And that's just for people who are in their cars or can't watch the show, because I play a lot of video, as you know, a lot of, not only serious stuff, but funny stuff that happens on TV. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to answer to anybody anymore. Any stupid GMs or program directors or people who want to put their thumbprint on my show, and we're wrong from the get-go. Yeah, we cuss a little bit, but we try to keep it somewhat family oriented. But if somebody does cuss or something like that, we're playing it. If something is funny, anything that is mildly amusing, whether it's sports or entertainment, we're playing it. So you can find me at Pete Sheppard 326 on my Twitter page. I put out who's coming up on the show every single day, sometimes the night before, on YouTube, on Kick, on Rumble, on CSN Florida, on LinkedIn. And you can always call or text the show at 727-858-6650. So it's a huge video platform. Do a great job. There's a lot of really good shows. You know, Patrick Gilroy's on the
Yeah,
show with
yeah.
his wife, Kat and Pat. They do an unbelievable podcast that's on the network as well. And we've got a few other surprises coming up. Angel's coming back with his show. We have, I can't say it, but we've got like 3 or 4 other things happening on the network. But I'm on 7 to 10 on the whole, Monday through Friday. Sometimes it's a little shorter than normal. Sometimes it might go to 9 or 9:30, but a lot of times it'll go to 10. So Glenn's on my show all the time. Mick Colagio. It's New England team, but it's national themed. So I have my New England contingency, obviously my Florida contingency, my Big Ten contingency, and even some on the West Coast. We've been heard in 53 countries,
Nice.
including Kazakhstan. Hello, believe it or not, Alaska and Hawaii too. All 50 states. So we have a big viewership, which is absolutely fantastic, and some great sponsors as well. So that's how you can get me. I'll be back on tomorrow, 7 to 10. Who's joining me? Jay Flannelly from Ann Arbor, Michigan. We're going to talk NFL football. He's unbelievable. He's a New England guy from the get-go, but he's also a huge, big part of what the Michigan Wolverines do up there. And he knows everybody, including Tom Brady, very well, but he's very, very well informed. So we're going to get more into the NFL draft and break that down. And then Mick Colagio is going to join me at 8:30, and we'll talk some Stanley Cup playoff hockey. And I haven't got a chance to speak to him since Charlie Jacobs and Don Sweeney and Cam Neely were stumped by the media in that godforsaken press conference that they held last week. It was uncomfortable to listen to say the least. But
Absolutely.
it is what it is.
Well, Pete, I'm a big fan of your show. I'm a big fan of you. I've been listening to you for a long time. And when you see Patrick Gilroy, tell him I said hello, because he was the PA guy at the North Shore Spirit when I was there.
I did not know that.
That was a while ago. That was back in 2006, 2007. So,
well, I'm a big fan of yours. Obviously, your play-by-play expertise speaks for itself. When Gilroy comes on, I always try to do Palladino's call. I go, Gilroy for 3.
Oh, you could do that job easily, Pete.
I yell that through my house. My wife gets so pissed at me. Shut up. It doesn't matter. I just yell it. Even if they don't make the shot, I'm yelling it before they make the shot. 3.
Nice.
All night long. I'll be doing it tonight. Now the game's at 8:30 tonight on stupid NBA TV down here.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just TNT decided they want to show the Knicks in
All right.
in Detroit. But anyway, we digress.
Well, Pete, thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm a big fan of yours. You're always welcome on this podcast, and I look forward to catching up with you down the road. It's my distinct pleasure to have you, my friend.
Well, the honor is mine, my friend, and anytime. And you need some decorative artifacts up there, because it does look like one floor with a cuckoo's nest a little bit. Definite sound. I get it. How about put a picture of yourself in a bathing suit or something like that?
I don't want to drive away viewers here, But anyway, I have my late father's picture is above my head, and that's all I
good.
need. That's all
Good.
I need. All right,
Well,
Pete.
my
Thanks
pleasure, my friend.
All right, Pete Sheppard with us. You've been listening to Airing It Out, Files from Leahy's broadcast booth. We'll be back at you next week with another episode. Thanks so much for tuning in.